Hello, everybody. Welcome back to BSG Annual 2022. We're here with another interview, one of our super awesome interviews. I'm Xoneris. I will be asking a few questions, and I have with me AEtienne. Hello, AEtienne.
Nice to meet you. And hello, everyone. Pretty happy to be here for this BSG Annual. My very first one as an annual, because I only do mentor, but that's really enjoyable right now.
Awesome. Yeah. So some of you might have already seen it, but this man here has 5 games in the schedule. The one that is coming up next is Azure Strike Gunvolt. That is in the next to next run, I think. So from what I remember, Azure Strike Gunvolt is a little bit Mega Man inspired, I'd say.
Exactly.
So could you give me what are like some key differences between Mega Man and like Azure Strike Gunvolt?
The thing is that this license is really weird, inspired by Mega Man's and more like Mega Man X. But one of the key things that this license is definitely, I think, easier than the Mega Man games, especially because of some skills that make players who are not used to those platformers and Mega Man's like games way more accessible, especially because of the dodging skills that you can use nearly infinitely to never getting hit. But the thing is, on the speedrun side, that begins to be really interesting because this skill, named the previsions, drain the energy that you use to make damage. So the thing is, this big difference make these games really accessible as a normal player, and also really some sort of really interesting to grind as a speedruns. So the main difference also, I think, with the Mega Man license is the Mega Man games are such part of a huge precisions, very precise movements, slidings, switching between weapons also. There is not too much about that in Gunvolt. There is mostly dealing with your resources. So this is, I think, the two big difference between those two games.
All right, interesting. And staying on the same game for a moment, since it's coming up, is there, for people in chat who want to watch it and maybe don't know, what's like one super awesome thing, like maybe trick-wise or a glitch or like a strat or something that is like super sick that they should look out for that is happening in the run?
The most important things they have to look out is when we try at some specific bosses to skip the animation that they use their special move, because this game is also made to be really anime, like with a lot of. If you are a fan of shonens or some this games, will definitely like this game, because we have some bosses or even our main character Gunvolt who scream the name of the attack before it launches. But there is a tiny animation of that with a big later on some stuff. But that took sometimes 8 seconds or something like this. But there is for some bosses 2 specific ones when we can skip that. And that's a huge time save if we successfully doing that. So, and one of those 2 bosses is also a really big run killer, and the second one is just a free save if we successfully doing that. So I will take a little. I will talk a lot before that happens.
All right, interesting. So, as I mentioned at the start, you have 5 runs during this entire marathon. I did not count how many people have 5 runs for this marathon, but it's not that many. I think it's like 2 or 3 maybe. And so normally sometimes we ask people on the interview to give us like a description of the speed run, but we don't have time for all 5 games. So give us like a single word to describe all 5 of the speed runs you had during this or have during this run marathon, I mean.
So sure, all 5 of those speedruns are not Pokemon, because I'm also a big Pokemon speedrunners, and every single
like one word for each of the 5 runs.
One word of each of the 5. Oh, okay. So for Mega Man, it's definitely your for Mega Man. So for Gunvolt, the single words I have to describe is Mega Man. that should be a good description. For Bloodstain, Curse of the Moons was also a pretty interesting Castlevania-like. That should be the axe, because the axe is pretty overpowered in this game. And for Human side is basically, yeah, it's tickety-boo. That's the things that we'll definitely hear many different times, because it's a game that you play the same day over and over, and there is a character who always say that in the game, so we'll hear that a lot during the Omen side runs. If I remember, for Lithium City is just, if you like synthwave, that will be synthwave, the word again. Because if you like that type of music, that will be definitely, yeah, the type of game that I will try to don't speak too much, because the music is just awesome. Finally, I did Chantel earlier in the runs, and that should be Red to Go, of course, if you saw that runs.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier that you also speedrun Pokemon games. Unfortunately, we don't get to see any of your Pokemon runs.
There is a lot of really skillful Pokemon runners in this BSG.
And so I did a little bit of research, and I went through your speedrun.com page, and you speedrun in general like a lot of different games, like some indies, a Zelda game, a lot of Pokemon. So I'm interested in, what does a game need for you to speedrun it? Like, what makes you want to speedrun a game?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. The thing is, I'm a huge fan of watching speedruns marathons since the very first GDQ stuffs, and I was thinking that was not having the skills to be a speedrunner myself. And after trying some stuff, especially on new games, indie games, as you said, I think, okay, so that's way more easier than I expected. And the thing is, by watching many different games, I'm starting sometimes to playing it, because they're looking really cool. And when I still have the feelings I would like to play this game, even if I finish it, I starting to speedrun it. The thing also is because I really like to learn things. I really like to way to memorize things correctly, and also I'm pretty interested by, as you say, many different type of games, because I really would like to feel how hard speedruns or games can be by playing it myself. So sometimes, many times, when I see, okay, this speedruns is really hard to grind for some things really impressive on some stuff, I just keep watching and don't try to speedrun it. But when I feel something that's accessible on not a tiny amount of time, but on a decent amount of times, around some month, for example, to being something serious to show at over people, so on an audience, or perhaps in a marathon, I definitely try to put a little bit of time. If it's fun and if it's enjoyable, I keep going, and I'm doing that since 5 years around. So after doing that and so on, I finished to having a lot of time in my speedrun.com page. There is still some games that I try to grind only for the leaderboard. So specifically Omen's side, Rise and Shine, who's not on the schedule, and some Pokemon's game, the very first generation of Pokemon also, because the community is just awesome. But for other games, I'm just trying to put a decent time on the leaderboard, and when I'm satisfied on my PB, I'm not being able to find the motivation to beat it. Satisfaction is something really great, but also the signal that if you're satisfied by your PB, you have a less decent chance to beat it if you're unsatisfied by it, because the best, I really think that the best world record holder on every single games are people who are never satisfied by their own PB. This is why they are world record holders on this continually grind stuff. So.
Yeah, I totally get you. And just a quick segue here, talking about Pokemon. You see, for example, this very beautiful Nido King plushie right here. This is one of our awesome prizes that you can win here at BSG, together with the Pikmin plushie and this other plushie, which currently I'm blanking on what this is supposed to be, but it looks awesome. And also this very lovely drawing. $25 for all of these prizes throughout the entire marathon. But one last question for you before we wrap this up. So, as already mentioned a few times, you have 5 runs during this week of BSG. How hard is it to keep being refreshed on the practice and the memory and muscle memory of all 5 games to be up to date? Is it hard to keep track of that, or?
That's not that hard, especially if it's games that you learn from a long time, or especially if you have some sort of games that you can grind for safe strat, or they are not too difficult to handle some specific movements or some specific trick. And to be fair, we already saw that at Chante I take some precautions instead of PB attempt by doing multiple save everywhere, and there were also many tricks that I didn't do instead of best Chante specific runners. The only runs that can be really dangerous should be Bloodstain, because it's really punishing games. But I train many times every evenings also to just refresh myself on those games. And also one of the things you have to keep in mind before an event like this, when you have a lot of friends, try to always finish the run that you begin with. This is definitely a difficult exercise as a mind when you are used to grinding for the run. This is basically what Speedrunner try to do, to get the record, the PB, and resetting if something going wrong. But you have to change your mindset, and the tiny trick that I use, especially for that, most of the speedrunners are used to live split, an item that can make you your segments and make you a timer. On a marathon like this, we only see the main timer, but if you are aware about what speedrunning is, most of the speedrunners have segments and compare themselves to their PB. Myself, for training as a marathon like this, I compare myself against my average time. I use always my average times in a no reset run. That's way more a good feeling than you see on some green segments or segments that you are ahead of your average. It's feeling way better to finish the run instead of seeing always under your eyes. I mean, that you're always slower than your PB. So I really advise to the speedrunner who like to train for future marathon to compare against their average time instead of their PB. This is my trick.
That's really good advice, actually. I've done it a few times. Just seeing green numbers just feels nice. But yeah, this kind of concludes the interview. Thank you very much, Etienne, for coming here.
Thank you, Xoneris. Thank you, Xoneris. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll be quickly jumping into intermission again. And next up, we got the Satanic Nerd with Sky Racket. So please, don't go anywhere.